Welcome to the Rich Lady Revolution, redefining rich with Diane McKendrick. Hey, lovely lady, I see you. You're an ambitious, high-achieving woman, driven, passionate, and ready for more. More money, more impact, more freedom. This is the place where women just like you come together from all over the world to break the old rules and redefine what it truly means to be rich. Because being a rich lady is about so much more than money. Joining the Rich Lady Revolution with those two sisters is about more than the money in your bank account. It's about building wealth on your terms, doing what you love, with who you love, and creating a life that feels as good as it looks. It's about stepping into your unshakable power and purpose. This podcast, combined with my 5th book, is your personal invitation to step into your rich lady identity. I will be here to educate, inspire, and empower you along the way, to support you to cut the crap, do the thing, and be the rich lady you were born to be. So if you are ready to elevate your income, your impact, and your life, the revolution starts now. Hello and welcome back to episode number 205 of the Rich Lady Revolution podcast. This is season number 3. I am your host, Diane McKendrick, ex-athlete, business owner, and a leader of women who refuse to settle. I build a life of freedom, wealth, and impact without the burnout, and I'm now here to show you guys how to do the same. Overachievers Anonymous is where we drop the hustle and start building success your way. Who's ready to deep dive into this? So today, I feel really excited because we have a special guest on. Michelle is here with me as well, but she's not my special guest today. You're not a guest anymore.
I've been kicked off, Dave. It's not me anymore, it's you.
So today, episode 205, I am welcoming Dave Gow, who is a fellow author. His book is called Strong Money Australia. If you're watching the video, you'll be able to see it. And I will share a little bit about how this book came into my hands and why I chose you, Dave, to come on this podcast, and what I think your experiences and what your teachings and principles and learnings can support the community. So we were away on holidays at Christmas time, and my husband finds a book every now and again randomly, and he sent me this book, and I hadn't read it yet, and I hadn't listened to it. It was on Audible. And he sort of said to me a couple of times, Dave, have you read this book? And I'm like, yeah, you know, somebody else out there sprouting off about money, feeling like they know everything. And, you know, what I really wanted to know was like, what are people's principles? What are people's values? And so Gus and I started reading and listening to the book. And within the first couple of pages, I just thought, this guy gets it. It's not all about the fanciness and the cars and the house and the next massive level. It's about keeping it simple, being really strategic, getting really clear about what you value, what lights you up, and then putting in a very solid, actionable plan behind that to make that your reality. So that is my interpretation or memory of the book. And so I've invited Dave here because I want to learn more about you, Dave. I want to hear more about your principles, and I want to share your magic and what you've been able to create with all our followers. So yeah, handing over to you to introduce yourself, let us know how you are, and then I think the podcast will just take its natural course.
All right, sure. So thank you for that generous summary, I guess, of the book and for having me on the podcast. For those who don't know me, I'm Dave Gow, and you might have heard from me if you've listened to some sort of personal finance and financial independence content perhaps over the years. So I run the blog essentially now called Strong Money Australia, and I started that after I left full-time work, it's actually about 8 years ago now, which is a little bit scary if I'm honest. So I suppose the very short summary of my journey is when I was about 19, I think it was, I sort of had this epiphany at work, looking around at the people who are much older than me. And I suddenly realized I don't want to end up being one of these people in this position doing a job I don't really like. And I'm still 62 years old and I still have to do it because I've got bills to pay. I just thought there has to be another way to live like this. I just couldn't stomach it. I just thought this is completely unacceptable. There has to be some other option.
That was 19. You were 19 years old when you had that awareness. You looked around and was like, this is not the life for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
I was just like, nah, this can't be it. Like there has to be something else. And it wasn't necessarily, it was just the lack of control that bothered me, the lack of freedom and the lack of being able to like choose what I did with my time. Because if you need bills to pay, you don't get to choose how you allocate your time. Obviously, you still might have work that because you could switch to a better job, but that doesn't necessarily give you more free time. You still need that certain amount of money to then pay your bills and keep your whole sort of life functioning. So I just thought, nah, there has to be some sort of other solution. And then I was imagining, well, if you're wealthy, you don't really have, if you're in a much better position, you don't really have to put up with, a crappy boss or a toxic work environment or anything like that. So I started learning about wealth and started wondering, well, is it possible for a normal person to build wealth? And then I started sort of deep diving into a whole bunch of books and learning as much as I possibly could about mindset and wealth and personal finance and investing, and come up with the idea that essentially, yes, it is possible for an average person. If you just do the right things for a long enough period of time, eventually you'll put yourself in a very good financial position and you'll be able to have way more control over your life and how you spend your time.
I love that. And I remember when you first came across, well, you probably heard it earlier, about the FIRE concept. I'd never heard of the term before. It was new to me. And that's like financial independent, like full financial independence. And when I heard you say that, I was like, oh, wow, I'd never even occurred to me that that could happen. And you gave this like really good way of explaining it in such simplistic terms to someone that to me is like a beginner or doesn't really, because the term investment and the shares and the stock market and all that's always scared me a little bit, but you just gave it in this simple way. And the other thing I really loved is how you said, yeah, you can have full retirement early or you can part retire. So would you like to just tell us a little bit about the term FIRE and when you first came across it?
Yeah, so it's actually quite interesting. I only came across it after I'd actually left work. So it wasn't really a
Oh,
term. It wasn't really a term that either I was aware of or it wasn't really sort of in the I suppose the lexicon in the internet space at that time. But yeah, essentially it stands for financial independence, retire early. And
yep.
so the financial independence is the most important part. The retire early is the bit that people will quibble with, but that part is optional. It's essentially getting to the point where you're able to live essentially a freedom-based lifestyle where you can work as much or as little as you want, but it's all about choice and control and options. So the
Yeah.
retire early part is completely optional. Doesn't really matter. It's just, I think it just kind of makes it like more of a catchy acronym.
It's a
That's
cool
essentially,
acronym, but it's all to do with the
yeah,
choice, right? Like that's what I love about it. It's the
exactly.
choice. You get to
Mhm.
choose if you want to work. We feel like really lucky, Diane, my sister and I, because we love our job. Like it doesn't feel like we're actually working. And you do mention in the book a couple of times that a lot of people, a majority of the population, don't actually have that. They dread
Mm.
going to work, or they're going to work because they have to go to work. But we already love what we do. And so the thought of retiring, as you said, can make people quiver a little bit. But it's the choice. Like, what if you didn't have to today? I mean, we sort of do that now. We're like, oh, we're off to the Gold Coast for the next 2 days, whatever. We've got a team, see you later. So we have a lot of that feeling of freedom already, but we're so excited to hear more from you to give us the structure about that. Diane, do you have any
Yeah, so I
extra
reckon the
questions?
next question I want to touch on for people what financial independence is, because that's a word that is thrown around. And we work with a lot of people. Some of them don't have huge earnings, others have huge earnings, but are still nowhere near financial independence because they haven't learned the principles that you teach. So, do you want to
Mhm.
give us a quick rundown on financial independence and your version of that? And then what I think would be really cool is to get some. I'll go into it next. Yeah, financial independence. Take it away, Dave.
So I would essentially summarize it as complete financial independence is the point where you're able to be able to fund all of your expenses through investments rather than through work income. And so that frees you up to do whatever you want with your time. That's the most strict and pure definition of the word. Obviously, as you approach that or as you go down that path, things start to improve quite quickly. And then over a period of however many years, depending on how much you're kind of putting into it, your focus and your resources that you have, you can have different levels of financial independence along the way where you're able to reduce work on sort of a sliding scale as opposed to all or nothing. So I think that's kind of, there's a middle ground that people tend to forget about. But if we're just talking about the strict definition, then it's essentially the point where you're able to live off investments and not have to work anymore. That's how I'd define it.
Yeah, wow. It's so simple when you say it like that.
Well,
It
it
is
is.
simple.
So simple. And no one ever taught me that at school.
I know. And it's just crazy. And like you talk in the book about how you went into property first and then you got into the shares. And just even the share, like everything you speak about is so simple. Like it's like you don't make the big fanfare. It's not about making quick bucks. It's literally like do the smart thing. You're in it for the long term. You're in it for the long run. Invest where it's smart and semi-low risk, I suppose, and then watch it build over time with the compounding interest and it's the whole theory is just sort of simply mind-blowing, but in a really simple way, if that makes sense. Um, do you have a question, Diana, or I'd like to, do you go first? Do you have a
Oh, you
question?
go. I'm
No,
like,
yeah, the compounding interest thing, it always blows my mind how that works.
Mm.
I know it is a sort of a complicated thing, but can you simplistically explain that and how you say when you put money aside, and I think it's 25 times the value, like I'm still getting my head around it because I listened on audio. I've got the
a
book.
$60,000 coffee. This is
Yeah, like it blows my mind.
the
It's
opportunity
incredible.
cost of a coffee. When I went and bought the next coffee, I was like, this
Think,
coffee costed me 60 grand. And my brain was like, oh, 60 grand, that's all right. I can handle that for this like dopamine hit right now. The next day it was 120 grand. And I was like, oh, that's pushing my threshold. By the third day, I'm like, I got to give this shit up. Like the opportunity cost of, is that the right word? Sometimes I get my words mixed around, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
let's chat about the
Yeah.
compounding.
Yeah, so they both interact and they both are related in important ways. So the first one, compound interest, that was the first thing I learned in one of the initial books about investing that absolutely blew my mind and is probably responsible for changing my life forever. It's where you kind of have that paradigm shift where you're like, oh my God. And I was just sitting there staring at the page for like 10 minutes and then just thinking, is this real? So basically, compound interest is essentially where you save some money, you invest it, and then your money goes on to earn some returns, whether it's interest or it's dividends or it's a rental income or something like that. And then the money that you've earned through investments, you reinvest it, and that money earns more returns. So your money kind of compounds because the money that you're making from investments is reinvested or is left to grow, and it kind of speeds up the accumulation because there's not only the money that you've put in, but then there's the returns that are kind of generating extra money by themselves. And then also when you add to that regular savings each month, you're kind of putting more fuel on the fire and speeding that up even more. So to your point about opportunity cost, that's another important way we can begin to think about our money and our expenses and what they're really costing us. Because, and it's funny because sometimes this is where people fall into a trap of thinking negatively about their finances and, you know, a bit doom and gloom because when you extrapolate, you know, a coffee or a car or a holiday out 40 years into the future, it looks like it's like ruining your life, you know? So there's a little bit of a delicate balance where you have to, it's useful to think about things in these ways, but you also need to like zoom out and be like, okay, I still need to live my life to some extent as well.
There's a really good blog post you did on that around frugal versus being a tight ass. I think you called it a cheapskate. And it's about making from my memory of it, it's about making the decision from a place of satisfaction and fun and playing it a little bit like a game as opposed to probably what we grew up with, Michelle. Like tight asses. I would eat before I went out. I wouldn't drink coffee. Like I would not spend any dollar that come out of my wallet was like running through several. And that was why I had $100,000 saved for the mortgage for my house when I met my husband when I was on a $30,000 a year job. But what I have since learned, and he helped me to be a little bit more easygoing with it. And now I think I went a little bit too far that way. And then reading your book, it's like, oh, I'm in control of this. I can choose this with You know, I'm 45 years old now. I've got different goals and desires. We've got 2 kids. So together, my husband and I and my sister, because we're business partners, just make some rules and some strategies and some boundaries, and we follow those. But like you said, you can get a bit of a bad rap, because I had a friend who used to bloody walk down to the phone box to ring me rather than use their mobile. And I thought, mate, she's got a problem. But now she's way further than me financially, because she made the sacrifice early. So that's pretty interesting. And
yeah, it's a sliding scale, right? So there'll be certain periods of your life where you're happy to spend not much at all, and you want to save as much as possible because you might be trying to buy a house or you might be trying to do different things. But then there'll be another period of your life where you're happy to scale up the spending and you don't mind, because you've kind of already established yourself and things are going pretty good and you've got some extra cash, and you can kind of scale it up or down. Too many people thinking either or, like I'm either saving or I'm enjoying my life. But there's obviously like a balance and a moderate middle ground that you can take, where you can get some of the benefits of both, depending on what you want to prioritize at the time.
So what I want everybody to remember there is the word sliding scale. And this is what we teach about our fulfillment for as well. Like when you're going for something, writing a book, buying a house, got a big project, what are you not willing to sacrifice in order to get that? Once again, you're the boss, you can choose it. And so I say to people, like, if you want to write a book in 3 months, then you are going to have to adapt and slide things so that can happen. It's not like you write the book and then your health is completely off the bandwagon. This concept of all or nothing that a lot of humans are attached to can be really awful for a lot of people. So I really want to bold the words, big red letters or whatever color you want to see, slide and adjust. With lots of different things in life, so you can move along that spectrum and give yourself the freedom that way. That's another a different way of wealth as well, when you've got that awareness that you can choose and you can enjoy that process as well.
So what are the questions you ask yourself, Dave, when you go to buy, like invest in something, whether it be big or small, whether it's the extra double chocolate mocha latte or the new boat? Like, what's the question when you are looking to become financially independent that you ask yourself? Diane touched on it before, just about the fulfillment. I can't remember the exact questions, but I had these huge aha moments, and I was driving. I was like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. Like, people need to know this stuff. Like, is this going to make me happy? I think it was. Is that the question?
Yeah, that's one of them. But it's not even just, will this make me happy? It's more so, will this bring me any lasting fulfillment? Because if you're like, will this make me happy, and you're thinking about buying a new shirt, you're like, yeah, it probably will. I'll feel great when I buy it. But then like 2 weeks later, it's like that feeling's completely gone, and you've got an extra shirt you maybe didn't need. So it's like, will this bring me any lasting benefits in my life? Not just now, but like 6 months down the track, how would I feel about this purchase? Will I be like, didn't really need it, kind of regret it, wish I had the money instead. So that's one way to think about it. The other way, which we kind of touched on a little bit earlier, is opportunity cost. So what could I do with the money instead? Yes. And that's where the compound interest lesson comes back in, where, okay, I could buy this thing, or I could invest this money, and then in the future, it'll be multiplied on itself. It'll be a lot more money. So that's another way to think about it. But yeah, there's a few different ways you can approach it, because then also when you're trying to work towards something like financial independence, one of the big lessons is that every expense that you want to maintain in your life on a yearly basis, whether it's groceries or holidays or whatever, to sustain that level of spending without working requires a pot of investments to provide enough income to cover that expense. So it's not just the cost that goes out each month, but it's, okay, now I need to have, X amount of investments to actually cover that expense in the future. And so there's an extra level of scrutiny, I'll say, that you want to put on different expenses, and really try and justify whether they're necessary or whether they do actually add value to your life or not. Because if they don't, they're hurting you in 2 ways. Not only is it taking away money now that you could be doing something else with, whether it's paying off your mortgage or whatever, but then it also means you need more to be able to retire, because you need extra investments to sustain those higher expenses. So it can hurt you in 2 ways. So you want to be really attentive to where your money's going and if it's worthwhile or not, because a lot of things in our lives, we're not going to be happy to cut them from our lives, whether it's going to visit family and things like that. So they're expenses that we want to keep. But the other things, we should dwindle them down to the point where, okay, I'm pretty much only spending money on things I really get value from. And so then you're operating in a much more focused way. And that because you're getting value from them, you don't mind cutting out other things that aren't really serving you very well, and you can use that money in a better way.
Yeah, really well put. This to me, it's the simple life that works well. Like you sit the simplicity, take what you need to make your life pleasurable, but not, like, to me, not superficial. Like everyone's values are very different, but for me, I make decisions around, like, the best thing I ever got recently is my RoboVac. So I've got 2 young kids. I'm a single mum, and it zips around and vacuums my floor. I got it mostly on Telstra points anyway, but it's like that bring me bloody pleasure and happiness, and will do till the day it like dies on me. Versus, as you said, like maybe a new dress or something that has that fleeting fulfillment for yourself. So to me, it's more simplistic that you can live, the less you have to cover when you want to financially retire. Because you're full financially independent now.
Yeah.
And you're doing these things because you love it. That's what I love. Because how old are you? Can I ask how old you are now?
Yeah, I'm about to turn 36.
Yeah, so he's 36. Like, that's incredible. And how old were you when you pretty much retired? 27?
28.
28. Like, this is real. Like, we're talking to this person that's done this. And I love also about your story, Dave, is that you didn't come from wealth, and that you were, like you said, you're working in a factory and you worked this all out yourself. It wasn't given to you on a platter. You weren't born into it. You didn't get taught it. You just went, hey, this has got to be a better life to this. And like, you're living proof that anyone can do this, like with some smart decisions and the right people in your corner backing you. It's incredible. Yeah.
And you're changing lives all over the world too, because obviously it's made a big impact for Michelle and I and our families. My son, who's 13, likes to play a good game every now and again. So I said to him, the agreement is that if you're playing games, that I put this book on in the background. So it's gone deep into his unconscious mind. I thought I was getting pretty clever. So every time he plays a game, Dave's on the back talking about financial independence and this, that, and the other. And he said, I didn't think he was hearing any of it, but I do hypnosis, so I know how the unconscious mind works. And he said something the other day. So this kid's 13, not interested in pretty much anything but video games. And he said, oh, Mum, when you talk to that guy, Dave Gow, tell him I think he's pretty awesome. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Tell me what you learned. And he started rattling off things that you'd said, but I put this on while he's playing his game. So we sat down with the kids and we looked at the money that had gone into their bank account, because we'd read Barefoot Investor, just always educating ourselves and Profit First and things like that. And the kids have got a fair bit in there that keeps going in there consistently. So we could show them that compounding interest where they're getting about 10% on their money. And now we're in a position, with your guidance, and I know you're not a financial advisor, but your experience has showed us that we can go out with the kids now and say, look at this, look how much you've made in interest. Ross was getting $20 a month. Like, for a kid, that's a lot for nothing. Nice. Now it's like, what happens when we move that over here? And I could see the kids' interest get piqued, and then it's conversation around our dinner table, and it's meetings Monday night, which is in our calendar. We need to start that, Michelle. My husband, my business partner, who's my sister, like, to put some action steps in place. So I'd really love to hear from you. And it's in the book, but let's talk about it, like 3 to 5 action steps that Michelle and I can do, my husband can do, and we're going to do it with our community. And then we'll tag it in everything, we'll share it, and blend the communities, because I think there's a lot of power in people taking back their own power and coming together and sharing their common interest.
My girls asked to listen to it in the car too. I made them listen to it all the way out to skiing. And then I said, I'll turn it off. And they're like, what are you doing? We want to listen. And I said, oh, but we're talking this right when you're into like all the investment funds and all the stuff. And I thought, okay. Oh. And she goes, I want to invest in Mecca, which is the bloody skincare range. I said, yeah, start saving your money. Okay, Mum, right. They're into it. So yeah, the kids love it. I don't know how, but they love it.
I mean, that's awesome to hear. The brainwashing is successful, I guess.
But how do you feel? How do you feel? We'll go into the tangible strategy in a moment. How do you feel when you hear so many people saying like, Dave, you're changing our lives. You're changing our existence because of the courage, the strategy, the realness, the authenticity, and the care. How does that feel?
It does feel pretty awesome actually, because it kind of makes all the days where I'm like sitting there at the computer and be like, I'll write something and be like, I don't know if this even makes sense. You'll write it and you'll read it and you're like, I think it makes sense. It makes sense to me, but then you don't know if anyone's going to like it, because someone might read it and be like, this is rubbish. Or they might be like, I don't get it. Or so then I'm like consciously trying to make it as clear as possible and as useful as possible. And so it kind of makes all of those times where I'm sitting at the computer, I'm like, I don't know if this is any good. Kind of makes that all those times worth it when I look back on it.
You know
So,
what,
yeah.
Dave? You definitely got a gift. It's probably normal to you, but the way that you speak, the way that you write, it's a gift. I've read a freaking lot of stuff in my lifetime, and yours touched me on a different level to what I've experienced in the past.
It's the Aussie thing too. It's the authenticity and the realness and the Aussie. And it's just like, you're just like one of us because you speak our language. And I love that you really focus on Australian, the top of Strong Money Australia. It's about how our interest rates work and how our share market is. And if you do talk about investing overseas, and I love your open mind, how you can talk about, you can do a little bit of both and you just give the pros and cons of everything. And then you say, it's just simple.
We're doing a big love fest here. Dave, I love how you care about the world and you brought into it as well, like coffee cups.
Yes.
You are one person, but if you're doing this every day or every couple of days and there's a couple of other billion people doing the same thing, like that's a compounding effect as well. Like take some friggin' responsibility, each of us individually and as a family unit, and together we really can change so much more than probably what our brain can comprehend. So I think everybody should go get this book, Strong Money Australia. Best place to buy it is your website, is it?
No, probably Amazon for the paper book and the ebook, and then audio book is probably Spotify, and Audible would be the best place.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get all the links of that and put it in the show notes. So anyone that's listening to this, highly recommend going and getting yourself both a copy of the audio book so you can listen to it while you're moving, and also a copy of the hard copy so you can highlight and put post-it notes in it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, cool. All right, let's get into the tangible action steps. And anyone listening to this, if you want to come along on the journey, Michelle and I have just launched yesterday or the day before. Before we're ready at 3 o'clock in the morning.
We don't even have a sales page and we're selling this product. I love it.
It's called the Rich Lady Roadmap, right?
I love it.
Redefining rich. So Michelle and I do a lot of the spiritual work and the rewiring of the brain through our divine hypnotics method, which is the rewiring of the brain, the reconnection to the body, and the being as well. So the 3 Bs.
Connection.
We're going to work with you on that with the Rich Lady Roadmap, giving you step-by-step rewiring, like activating the receiving receptors, doing all the things that will have you earn a shit ton of money, doing what you love with who you love. Now, none of that money really matters if it's coming in one bit and out the other, which is what happens to most people. So our intention with the Rich Lady Roadmap is we're going to teach you and show you and do all this for you. And what I would love to infuse into it is Dave's strategy step by step. And then we're going to add each step on the roadmap. I'm going to grab something from Dave here personally now, or read his book and go, you're doing this today. Let's all do this together. Don't move on to the next thing until you've done that. If you don't do that, no one else can move on to the next thing. So get your ass into gear and get that thing done so we can keep going on the journey together. Michelle, do you want to share a little bit more about how it come to life?
It's just hilarious. Di and I, we've been running courses for many years now, and we have very different personalities, and we sat down, we're like, we're going to do this new thing. We ended up having our first, not a fight, and I'm like, I'm going to go on, slam my finger down on the Zoom button, and went and I hung up on her on Zoom, and then we went and did our own, moved through it ourselves. I'm a hippie, so I'm pulling the cards and doing my spiritual work. She's probably hoo-haing around the room because she's a hippie too, but she does it in a different way. Anyway, both come up with the same reason, that nothing has to be perfect. You just get it started, and it's a journey. And then it all just came through. We got all these downloads because we're so passionate about women being rich in all areas of their life. yes, money is extremely important. You know that more than anyone, but there's so many more things to life that defines rich. You know, it's no point having all the money, being financially retired and being miserable and lonely because you don't have a partner and you're obese and you don't look after do you know what I mean? You don't look after yourself. So yeah, it's a whole big picture thing for us, and that's why I'm very excited by it to see how our women, it's the next step in our journey
It's
because
a revolution. So
we realize that we.
fifth book's called Rich Lady Revolution. So we're starting a revolution, redefining rich. And so we'll be doing all that stuff. The roadmap is the start of that. And then if we combine that and blend that with your strategy and step to step, it is going to go out of this stratosphere. So
I think the first one, I want to hear from Dave, but I think this was in your book too. The first one I would like to put forward, and you'll probably say this is too, is your starting point. What, like the big thing that changed for me is when you said, what's your net worth? And I'm a single mom, you know, 2 little kids. And I don't know if you probably don't know my story. Everybody knows I'm famous except to Dave. Most people know my story. I was a police officer for I'm famous. Come on.
for
For 20
lunchboxes, Dad would say.
Yeah. Even the bloody postman knew me today, Diane. Anyway, 23 years I was in the police force, a sergeant. Ended up not getting the vaccine, so I got the sack. So I was a single mum with 2 young children, went from a pretty good wage to a business. It happened, my last pay was on the 24th of December. We run a life coaching and a business coaching business where everyone stops spending money usually around December and January. And 3 years later, here I am still, you know, kicking along and feeling really good about myself. But I wouldn't have said I'm like wealthy. But when you said, what's your net worth? When I wrote down, I realized I don't have a credit card debt. I've nearly paid my home loan off and I don't have any. I don't have a car loan debt. I love what I do, which was a big thing for me. It wasn't always about money. I'm like, yeah, I'm bloody wealthy in my own right and way further along than I thought I was. So that to me was the starting point, being further along than I thought I was. I'm not financially independent, but I'm happy, I'm fulfilled, and I don't have huge debts. It's like that was huge in itself. So that's for me was a starting point. So I'll hand over to you now, Dave, for you've got your starting point. What do you do next?
No, that's a perfect illustration, because if you don't really know where you are currently, you don't have the right perspective to say, okay, what do I need to do now? So once you've got that starting point, then you kind of can tell where you want to go next. Because if you're starting in a terrible position, then and you've got a bunch of debts hanging around here and there, then maybe investing is not the right next step. You probably should tidy up your finances a bit and look at what debts you're paying and why you've got them, and you know where all your money's going and that sort of thing. So probably after you've studied or broken down your net worth and what you own and what debts you have, the next step is understanding not only your because that would be your assets and your debts. The next thing is probably just looking at your cash flow. So how much money is coming in and then how much money is going out. Hopefully there's a nice difference between those 2 numbers, but not necessarily. But we want to get to the point where the money that's coming in is a lot more than the money that's going out. So you can do that in a couple of ways. You can bring more money in and you can have less money leaving the door. So you can do it in both ways, or you can pick one or the other. It doesn't really matter which option you choose, but you're going to have to figure out where all your money is going. So you're going to have to actually start tracking it for a month or 2 months or 3 months to really suss out how much money is leaving your bank account and where it's going. And then you can analyze, okay, are these things really important? Can I improve on any of these bills? Are any of them still necessary? Maybe I've got a subscription I don't even use. Like all of these different things can be studied and analyzed one by one to just reflect and consider whether you need that expense in your life, whether there's a cheaper way to get the same thing, or whether you can cut it out entirely and replace it with something else that might work for you better. But yeah, you could basically want to optimize your personal finances at that point for money coming in, money leaving.
Coming out. Yeah. So step 1, know your net worth. So we'll show people how to do that. Step 2, look at your cash flow and audit what's coming in and what's going out and tracking it. When I hear that, and I think I've got to do that by myself, I feel like I want to just stab myself in the eye with a hot poker. But as we were talking, I was like, imagine how cool it would be doing this together. Or Michelle, you know, like if we're looking for new insurances or something and someone finds something, it's like, hey, did you check this out? Just the community aspect of it feels really good. So
It's actually exciting when you find, like I do subscription audits on the business all the time and I get excited. Me and my head VA, virtual assistant, she sometimes goes, oh, Miss Michelle, I found this. I got rid of it. We don't need it. I'm like, yes, we've saved like, even if it's $20 a month, we're not using it. Why are we spending it? Like, get rid of it or get something cheaper. Drop down a plan, you know?
It's cool. It's cool because it feels like free money you just found,
Yeah.
right? Because it's
Yeah.
something, oh, I don't need that. And now I've got extra money. Great. It's
Yeah.
like, it's perfect winning combination.
Yep. So yeah, look for, and I think it is more exciting. And when we used to do the money things, the other thing we used to do is we get people to go through their operating expenses account or whatever they call it, and send gratitude to all the things you've just spent. That's a really cool process that we do. I'm so grateful for the fact that, you know, I have internet, and I'm grateful for being able to spend this money in a community of other like-minded women, and I'm grateful for that. You know, all that stuff. That was really cool exercise as well, which did it. So yeah, income and outcome, income and expenses.
Yep.
So we go through that with a bit of a fine tooth comb, seeing where your money's going. And I'm guessing probably you're going to say the next step is building a bit of a cash cushion first before you start going off investing.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best solution because too many people think, okay, I've sussed out my personal expenses. I've realized I've got a car loan that I should probably get rid of. Let me just throw all my money at this car loan. But then something happens and you've got some sort of personal emergency or big expense that comes up, and now you like, oh shit, I've got no money. And then you need to redraw on the car loan, or now you need to take out a credit card to pay for your expenses for the next month because you don't have any cash because you're trying too hard to smash this other loan down. So it doesn't really work too well. So you need some sort of cushion in your situation to absorb things that life throws at you. So yeah, I would then go ahead and build some sort of emergency fund or cash cushion to kind of see you through those little ups and downs, because then you know at least whatever happens, I'm okay. This little cash buffer will see me through pretty much most circumstances. And then any cash I have on top of that, then I know I can, basically guaranteed I can put it towards something, and then I can just leave that money there, whether it's paying down debt or whether it's beginning to invest. So I like to operate because then you've got more certainty over your situation, which feels really good.
Do you recommend a percentage? I know Diane's got a good story around a cash cushion. It saved her life in COVID. They would have lost their house. Thank goodness.
I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Because I know lots of people are listening that might have been or be in the same position eventually. One of my coaches many years ago said, start an automated savings account. Take this percentage, start with this percentage. You're not even going to notice it. Put it across. I didn't even really know how to open my bloody bank account back then. So I was sitting there trying to work it all out. This guy told me to do it. I was being a bit of a brat, probably in my mind, having a bit of a tantrum about it, thinking my husband's an international airline pilot. He's never going to lose his job. He'll be fine. We'll be fine. Yeah, fast forward a couple of years and I started doing it. I worked out how to do it and I was increasing it every 3 months. And then we get the call just before crazy COVID times. My husband, international airline pilot, 200 grand plus a year. I didn't have to work. We'd always lived within our means. That's what our parents taught us. And thank goodness we had that cash cushion, because he lost his job overnight before the craziness. So we didn't even see it coming. He literally got a call after he'd been flying people back and forth, sick people, and then being locked down. So we were already in a fairly vulnerable situation. We had a cash cushion which kept us going gave us it might have even nearly been 6 months. If we didn't have that, our relationship probably would have broke down because we were under so much enormous financial pressure. We possibly could have lost the house. That would have meant the kids needed to change schools. But because I'd taken and pushed through the habit and got it started, it's basically saved our relationship and our life. So I just want to share that story with people because it's a break of the habit. It's a break of the habit. And this is one of my next questions I wanted to ask you, Dave. Like, this is obviously part of your life. How do you manage this? Like, we started a thing called Money Matters. So just like you would with a date with yourself or a client, you've got to get some time in your calendar. And we called it Money Matters because what I realized I did was put, do my money stuff here. And that was not inspiring to me because I wasn't looking long term. Always something else come up. So I had to change the language, but like, Money Matters. Put it on 9 o'clock every morning and I sit down and I open my accounts and I say, this is what's in here. This is what's come in. This is what's gone out. 9 o'clock in the morning. Do you have some sort of habit around your setup and how you manage it all?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's probably I probably look at my stuff less than I used to, but I probably do have a habit of checking my accounts and seeing everything that's going on probably once or twice a week. I think that kind of helps me stay on top of things, but I try and keep things as simple as possible. So we don't have a lot of accounts. And so that's one thing that actually helps make it easier to manage and whatever is keeping your finances as simple as you can. So it makes it less overwhelming when you do go to look at your accounts and make sure you understand, what's coming in and going out and all the rest of it. So that's another aspect of simplicity where that can be of benefit.
Yeah, so it's a bit like anything when you first start out, because we're breaking habits and creating new neurons and pathways, every day or a couple of times a week would be sufficient. As you master this skill and create the habits and the life and the lifestyle and the identity, which is really important, it just becomes part of who you are. You can be like Dave, check it once or twice a week. So you always know what's going on. You can make educated decisions. But most of us are listening to this not at the point Dave is yet, but you can be. And you've got to need a starting point. I even thought when I pulled up and I looked, I'm up to 205 podcasts. That took some discipline. That took some courage. That took some commitment. And now I'm at 205. And it's the same with your money. Just got to pull your finger out of your ass and actually do something and be consistent for a period of time so you can actually start to see the difference. So you've got 3 things there that you can do straight away. Is there anything else, Dave, that's really like on the tip of your tongue that would make the biggest difference for people, not necessarily beginning, like some of our ladies make shit ton of money, but in making this someone's identity, helping them make the identity?
Oh, the identity shift is a tough one because it depends on the kind of the internal script that people are running in their own minds and how they perceive themselves to be in the area of money, whether they perceive that they're like not very competent or they perceive that, yeah, okay, I can manage this, this is fine. So that by itself, the identity shift, I think will actually come as a consequence of doing the right things over and over again, whether it's checking your money or it's finding a better deal on your insurance or it's, making that extra payment on your mortgage or something like that. By doing all of these little things over and over and over again, you create the identity that you're a person who is savvy with money. So I think that will come as a natural consequence of doing all the right things consistently and unfortunately boringly over a long enough period of time. And so that's, I think, part of the reason why a lot of people don't get anywhere is because it's not exactly exciting. The truth is, like, what I've done is incredibly boring when you think about it. I've just essentially saved a lot and invested a lot for years and years and years, and then eventually you get to a great position. But it wasn't exactly fun at the time, right? I was working like extra hours when other people were going home, So there's a lot of things that look great at the end, but they're not exactly fun when you're doing it. It just depends how much and how badly you actually want to improve your life and get the outcome that you desire.
It's like the gym though. Like it's shit at the start because you're crap at it and you're unfit.
Exactly.
And as soon as you start to get some 6-packs and get a bit of strength, it starts to become fun again. It's exciting because you can start to see the progress. I think same with this. Once you know your starting point, you know your net worth, like even your home loan, like I bought this at next to nothing and it's worth, a lot of money now and I've only got a little bit left. Like that's actually my money really when you think about it. It's equity. So that's exciting now rather than when you first go to the gym and realize you can't even do a sit-up versus over time. And the same thing with money. Like you get to the end and Dave's finances, it's his 6-pack body, if you're looking at where you're at, like you're the bodybuilder of finance.
Yeah.
But when you're eating broccoli and chicken and working your ass off every day, people don't see that. They just see the bodybuilder of finance. That's your new name, Dave. You can put that.
It's actually a great example because it's built on exactly the same things, finance and being extremely fit. It's the same thing. It's boring consistency. It's doing the right things over and over again when other people can't be bothered or that, they want to do something else instead. But just to touch on progress, because you mentioned that, I find that when people start to actually make some financial progress, and it doesn't have to be much. Quite often it's in the first 3 months or so. There's a real like, wow, I can actually do this. And then there's a huge burst of motivation after they've made their first couple of small bits of progress. the motivation kind of kicks in because they can see it working. It doesn't feel like wasted effort that they were kind of worried, oh, I'm going to put in all this effort and it's not going to make a difference. But once you see some progress, it starts to feed on itself because it becomes addictive. And so you see that happening and you kind of want to double down on it. And so then there's a momentum that gets behind you. And so there's compounding not only in your finances, but actually in your level of motivation and in the momentum you have in the direction that you're going, which is incredibly powerful. But it's not something that you would really think of before you start, but it's something that I've seen over and over again with people that go down this path.
Yeah, amazing. And then getting someone on board that's also on the same page as you. Like obviously your wife had similar values, similar goals. So I think that's really important to surround yourself with either a partner or a community that's, like we touched on before, wanting the similar thing. You might go about it slightly different ways. I don't know if I was dreaming this, but I think I remember you talking in the book, it might have been a blog of yours, about how not to speak to your partner about saving. Did I imagine that? I could have been dreaming about it. I don't know. But yeah, like, don't go to you did say that?
I did touch on that in the book. Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's so true. You don't
tell
go
us more. Now we want to know. What do you mean don't talk to your partner about it? I didn't get to that bit.
How not to talk to your partner.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
Not to talk. Yeah, right. Yeah.
You bloody ruin it. Yeah.
Give us an example.
Yeah, one example for that.
Yeah, so essentially you don't want to try and dictate, how your finances are going to operate with your partner because it's not really going to work. So you want to essentially paint, if you're not on the same page, and assuming you're not on the same page, if you are on the same page, obviously it's going to be relatively easy. But if you're on different pages on what you value, but the direction you want to go in your life and how you want to use your finances, then it's not so easy. And so then you actually have to you don't want to actually start berating your partner for their purchases that they're making or whatever. That's just not going to work. It's not going to work with anyone just trying to tell them off, you should do this instead. It's just not going to work. And even if you think it's working, it's going to destroy your relationship eventually anyway. So you need to get on the same page in terms of meeting in the middle and finding out what they value and why they want to go in a certain direction and how they kind of envisage your life being and why. So the actual underlying motivations for why they want a certain life or a certain lifestyle. And then you can kind of unpack those things and come to some sort of agreement, ideally somewhere in the middle, where you can both sort of get a balance of what you want while also keeping the other person happy. So it's obviously going to be some compromise on both sides and trying to see how you can come to some sort of agreement where you're both still happy with the arrangement that you have and with the direction that your life is heading.
Yeah, I love that. A bit like coaching. Got to get to their why, into their why and their pain point, and they have the internal momentum to want to do it themselves and join you on the journey. So yeah, that's really cool. So we've got Diane, just to summarize, I think you probably wanted to do this anyway, but get your starting point, know where your income and your outcome, that's a new word, your income and your expenses are, build up a cash cushion. We didn't get the percentages, like 3 or 6 months of your expenses. Is that what you'd say?
Yeah, it depends on the situation and how, I suppose, nervous of a person you are, how many risks you would like to cover against. But yeah, 3 to 6 months expenses, I think, is a pretty decent starting point.
Yeah. Find a community or a partner or someone that's on board that keeps you exciting and keeps you the momentum going. And then once you've got your cash cushion, looking into investment, the best way, honestly, just get the book. You explain it in so well. Like I know nothing about shares and I'm like, I want to get out there and start investing. It just sounds so simple. I didn't even know what an index fund was.
Yeah, even to hear you talk like this, Michelle, is quite not shocking, but surprising, because before you read that book, you wouldn't have known, or both of us actually.
I didn't know what it was.
We knew how to save money. We know how to be consistent and very frequent.
Within our means.
Live within our means, but all these terminology even would have just gone straight over our head. Now you're sitting here having a conversation, understanding, preparing and, shifting your identity even through
preparing for my payout. It's coming, baby. Watch out.
Oh, yes.
Like, Dave, I've been paid out. I'm getting some money coming. It's been 3 years. It's been unlawful in the courts. Oh, you're in Western Australia, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Queensland, it's found in the Supreme Court that our terminations were all unlawful, and now we've got a massive class action
Yeah.
So, and back pay and all the stuff. So I'm just mentally preparing for all this cash that's coming flying my way, so I know what to do with it when it hits me. Yeah, I'm going to be in a very good position, I think, because now I've got the understanding of how it works and what to do next. And I think it's just, I'm excited to share this with other people so they too can get some idea of where to take it, like what to do with it. So.
Yep. And if you want people to do it with, obviously get Dave's book. If you want to join us on the journey, go have a look at our website. It'll be up by the time this podcast is called The Rich Lady Mini Roadmap. That's going to give you the first 3 steps on the journey to the Rich Lady Revolution and redefining rich. There's going to be some very tangible, actionable steps that we're taking from this podcast with Dave, from his book, from his blogs, and we're going to do that all together. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's only being launched at $47. There is only a Stripe payment link right now. You know, we have talked about expenses, $47. It's absolutely going to change your life and make you so much more money. So if you want to come along for the journey, yeah, go over there, buy Dave's book, jump on our website. Is that the best place to get Michelle? Because it's still all in the process.
We're still building it. So yeah, it'll be on the website. And I'd just love to hear from Dave. Do you have any other offering? You've obviously got your book. You say pretty much you don't need to work. You don't probably have any programs. Or is there anything that you wanted to say on this podcast that you're like to promote or offer, or how do people get in contact with you as well?
Yeah, probably the best way is just to go over to the website. So I've just started a new podcast actually, which is just essentially called the Strong Money Podcast. And that is going to be basically an audio library of some of my most important older articles, because I noticed that I've had quite a few people join me in the last couple of years, and I'm fairly certain that they wouldn't have read some of my earlier blogs. So I'm essentially going to turn my blogs into podcasts because I haven't done that before. So that'll be a way of getting those same principles and messages out there to people who would rather listen than to read. So that's something that I'm working on at the moment.
Cool. Do you do any in-person meetups?
I do actually. I'm having one in Perth this month.
Okay, so Perth, if you want to meet Dave in person, you'd probably find his website.
Yeah, there's not on the website. There's details on my Facebook page.
Facebook page. Okay, cool. Any chance of coming to Brisbane anytime soon?
It's not on the cards, but I'm sure I'll get there. I'm sure I'll get there sometime.
It's beautiful over here.
It's sweltering hot. It's probably yeah, if you ever come to Brizzy,
let us know.
And go for a walk with a homemade smoothie.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for everything that you've done and sharing time and space here today and sharing your strategies and your awareness and helping us all shift our identity into the rich lady that we're born to be. So it is now time for everybody listening to this. If you're listening in from Dave's following, it's those 2 sisters, Michelle Ann, the blondie, she's the older one too, Diane McKendrick, I'm the brunette, younger one.
Grey hairs.
With grey hair. You can find us at www.those2sisters.com. We support ambitious women to cut the crap, do the thing, which this time round is Rich Lady Roadmap, and be the woman or the rich lady that you were born to be. Anything you want to add to that, Michelle?
No, I think you said that perfectly.
Okay,
cool. Thank you, Dave, for your time. And yeah, when you get really, really famous, we'll say we know him. Have you been on the media yet?
I've been on the projects.
The project.
Does that
He's
count?
already really, really famous.
Well, I had a feeling he's going to be really famous.
I'd rather avoid that, actually, to be honest.
I know you would. I don't think you have a choice. You could say, I know those 2 sisters.
When we're famous one day.
I'll do that.
You can drop her name.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. We'll see you same time, same place next week. Wow, what an episode. Now here's the thing. Knowledge is power, but action is where the magic happens. So if today's episode has lit a fire in your belly and you are ready to take this to the next level, cut the crap and do the thing to be the woman you were born to be, then I've got something special for you. Join us on the Coaching Couch. It will be an exclusive front row seat to the conversations, breakthroughs, and strategies that are helping women just like you up-level their income, their impact, and their whole entire life. This is your chance to experience what it's like to be fully supported and deeply connected with a world-class coach and community of high-caliber women who get it, who get you. It's where you'll get a taste of our unmarketable magic, real-life strategies, and the kind of high-level conversations that will catapult you into the next level of success without the burnout. It's free for you, it's powerful, and it's waiting right now. So if you are serious about stepping into your rich lady identity, head over to www.thosetwosisters.com and secure your spot on the coaching couch now. Trust me, your future self will thank you for it.